Okay. All right, so guys, today I know our meeting is supposed to be about like partner and group work, and we'll do a share out a little bit later, but I wanted to start by sharing with you a strategy for sharing difficult text with your student. So as I was planning this, just to be transparent, I was thinking about, okay, what do I need to front load this with? So these excerpts are from Federalist 10. So I know we've only got 2 social studies teachers here, and I don't imagine that you guys are terribly familiar with Federalist 10, or is that something? Not beach reading. Okay, so Federalist 10, I'm going to give you some background, because one of the things I want to do is think about what my kids might need first before I even did this. So this is kind of a preview to the preview of the text. For Federalist 10, there was a series of 85 essays written after the Constitutional Convention broke up to persuade specifically the state of New York to ratify the new Constitution. So James Madison's the author, right? So he's the guy that was the father of the Constitution. Right? We call our government the Madisonian model of government. That's what we refer to it in political science. And he's making an argument.
John McHale, please call extension 627 immediately. Thank you.
Okay, he's making an argument that this is going to be better. And I don't want to give too much away, that this is going to be better than what we had under the Articles. The counter argument is coming from the Anti-Federalists. All right, so the Anti-Federalists did not want those states to ratify the Constitution. So I think that's enough to get us started. So I'm going to tell you what I did. I pulled out different sentences, maybe one sentence, sometimes 2, but these sentences tend to be longer in some of these documents. And you guys everybody has a quote in front of them. What I want you guys to do first, if you want to grab, I'll send some markers around. I want you to first try to make sense together of what you see. Just, that quote, you know a little bit of the context, but see if with your partner, you can make sense of this text. Okay? And we'll do that. Maybe we'll just take a couple minutes on that. Okay? If they don't work, let me know, because some of them are from last year. Okay.
No, I'm fine. Never mind. We can write on it, right?
Yep, yeah, you can write on this. One thing, think about doing a text rendering, figuring it out, like making sense of it, and then just try to come up with what's a key takeaway from this? What do you think he's trying to say? And kind of write that out.
Previous democracies in history
We just
have been very chaotic.
we kind of think it needs.
They've always had many types of turmoil, right?
That's a science word, right? Sort of?
They haven't always, they haven't maybe protected people's freedoms or their property, the rights own property. And basically, they haven't lasted long throughout history. I'm guessing they're thinking of Rome and somewhere like that.
But didn't the Rome at the point where it was eventually thought that it take on more of a czar type structure?
Yeah, the emperors kind of, they got a little carried away. So what started as a democracy kind of turned into almost like a mini dictatorship.
So maybe there wasn't in those prior ones good examples of balancing power between different branches.
I would say that's true.
Possibly.
So I gather from that is that he's stating in this
like
that liberty is going like this at the time when they were trying to make
Do you think
deals with air masses.
he thinks a faction is a good thing or a bad
It's not
thing?
really it's an effect.
yeah.
I think he thinks it's inevitable.
Inevitable? Okay.
Right.
Yeah, just kind of talking to the text a little bit, and then if you guys could just come up with like a preliminary summary statement of what you think he means. Like a paraphrase.
You want us to write it?
Yeah, go ahead and you can write it, okay? Because ultimately,
Individual or group?
you guys can do it together. And then ultimately, we do a gallery walk where we're going to post them around. And then you might have your kids with Post-it notes remarking after we get done with this first phase. So that even though you only read this, you're going to get a preview of other parts of the text.
Get rid of factions either.
It's like one of those, you have to take it.
Good and bad.
Document chaotic.
Actions are inevitable, but without everyone, right?
As lacking
Yeah.
property rights, individual security,
Okay, so it's lacking, whatever it is, I want to say something, lacking, I want to say walls, guaranteed,
It is.
I'm looking for something like that,
We
lacking.
got our ideas over here. We're supposed to make a summary statement.
Yeah,
We just
come
have
up-
our ideas.
Okay, you have your ideas now,
Yeah,
so
right.
come up with a preliminary summary statement.
Document character.
Is what I'm gonna want you to do. What you'd have your kids do is like take a first shot at it. What do you think?
Certain,
Then you're gonna get the
Freedoms.
quote with a little bit of context and then revisit what you
rights.
thought. Okay?
Awesome.
freedom, right, such as personal liberty, personal security,
Yep.
That's what we said.
and their longevity is brief, and their end is.
Oh, were we supposed to write out the paper?
Yeah, you can write right on the paper.
Tumultuous.
Yeah, because ultimately,
We want to have
what you guys, yeah,
tumultuous, violent,
ultimately, what you would do in your classroom is a gallery walk of these. So even though you just read this,
Their demise.
you're going to get to read, you'd instruct your kids, start at each poster by reading the quote and then look at what the group
Demise
thought.
was-
So even though you only read this one piece out of what is a long document,
I mean, I guess you're confused.
you would have read several, depending on the size of the class. Like I prepared 7, right? 7 key quotes. If I have a smaller class, maybe I got 3. And then I'm gonna be really selective about which ones I really, what ones really contain the biggest ideas. If I had more kids, I might pull up more text, so. Okay, so, are you guys did you guys
Yeah.
finish up? Yeah.
Yeah,
it's-
we're good.
So I've given you a copy of Federalist 10, and what I did is I numbered each paragraph. So in the second part of this activity, what you're going,
I want to go to the whole thing. Sorry.
and you can take this with you if you want to read the whole thing. Maybe you have something to do over the long weekend. So if you look at paragraph here for you guys, paragraph 13, now read a little bit of the text before and after your quote. Your quote is contained in the paragraph that I've noted, right? And then come back together and see if you want to change your summary statement. Are you thinking about your summary statement a little bit differently now that you have more context? the history people, or, you know, you see a document like this and you want to dig in, what you would ultimately do is then, this is the precursor for a full read of the document. So now you guys might just like have a conversation. Is there anything about your summary statement you want to change? Did you notice anything with more context? Right? And in science, it could be you pull out a big idea, right? They read something before and after, and now maybe they're thinking a little bit differently. You're getting them to see, right, how their thinking changes the more they read, right, of the text, right? And in English, of course, this is, right, this strategy's pretty good too, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. In language and composition, this is, yeah. You change it if you think you have to. If you don't, right? I'll just kind of talk through what the rest of the lesson would look like.
We definitely have to change ours to know
It's
that
previous government.
the disease,
They're worried that
the
the government's
mischiefs,
split into
we
different
have to add
factions.
to different
And
factions,
because of that, it's led to
and negative existence.
deaths
I think
during
still
the past.
another good lesson.
Like, because
I think
governments
so
have
too,
split into
because
different factions.
I was thinking as I was reading
They've
this that
led to in chaos and all that. And
it
it's
ensures an
time
exchange of
for it.
ideas, and allows
But
people
also-
to develop individual beliefs, but that, the result of that is that factions form, right? Yes, it's a result of being able to be free thinking and develop your own ideas. That means as an individual, you can think, but you can think differently.
It's basically
Saying that theoretically they sound good, but they
In practice,
Yeah,
they-
that
they
idea
use
that
the
you've
word
said before,
theoretic,
but
so-
being
so it
inevitable,
gives this,
that's a
notion
big
that
get
during
when
practice
reading
it's not
Federalist
good.
10.
right by trying
He
to
says,
create
okay,
equality
we know that they're going to
and
happen.
everything.
So here's what we've done, right? We've
Just
created
because
this
everyone's
large republic.
equal politically
And then he goes
doesn't mean
into
they're
his
gonna all
supporting
have the
evidence
same
that a large
money
republic
and
won't get
property.
rid of faction, because that's
Exactly,
impossible.
right, that's kind
But
of-
will control those effects. So what, that was a big get too. You know, and sometimes, you know, you might hear something and like have kids say, oh, remember that idea. That's
Right.
big. You know, make sure you record
So,
that for,
that-
you know, the other groups,
yeah.
because that's a big
That's
get.
what we just went over.
Okay. This is not, yeah, it's not easy reading, but it is like, makes it, I think, a little bit,
It's interesting. It makes it interesting. I think it's an interesting approach. Makes you curious about the
But it's
rest.
theoretical.
yes. And then that
It gives
they're trying
gives-
to, if you
it gives the
think about
assumption that
the
it's
average kid sitting
theoretic
down
and
with
practical.
this
Right.
and trying to make sense by
Labeling
themselves,
theoretic,
Yeah.
right? Which is kind of like how I was taught.
Sounds good.
Right, which is
Here's your home.
overwhelming, right?
Yeah, but here's a chance for them to make some sense of some, you know, big ideas. And then when they go and do the full read, well, now they've got more schema or background knowledge to bring to the text. And, you know, when you choose those quotes, right, to include the excerpts, you want to be strategic, right? What are the big ideas? Okay. So-
I know we can't use the word communism, but it is the idea
You
that
know, have you
if
ever
you,
talked about our newspaper?
just because you make everyone politically equal, it doesn't translate to monetarily equal, right? And they're saying theoretical politicians have thought this before.
It's interesting.
Yeah, so, but that's actually interesting, like,
Can,
You know,
like, could we use something more modern?
You-
state.
kids will, right?
Okay.
They'll bring up things that they know about.
Yeah.
And then that's an opportunity for you to maybe go back to the sourcing of the document.
Yeah.
And just, you know, and like that's an interesting idea. So when you're connecting it to
Right.
something that is in modern history. So it's okay
Yeah.
to do that,
Yeah.
as long as they ground this, you know, in the
Yeah.
context of the time.
Right.
But if they can make that connection, they're gonna be better off when
Yeah.
they're reading. Just as long as they don't get their wires crossed
Yeah,
that this,
right.
you know, but, so, here's what we would do
Evidence
next,
or
guy,
quality.
here's what we do next, right? What we would do is you guys would, I think everybody had a conversation after they read some context that it changed the quote a little bit for them, at least, right? So then you'd have the kids make those edits, hang them up along the walls, and then have them do a gallery walk. And then that's a choice for you, how much time do you want the kids to get to all of the posters, or do you want them to make sure they visit, at least 3 that aren't, the same quote as they don't have to visit their own. So those are some choices that you could make. But as you're doing this and kind of circulating around the room, one of the things I'd ask you to think about is what are some things that you predict you would notice kids struggling with? What would be your predictions? Like if I could just get a few. Vocabulary.
Action.
Okay. Yeah, vocabulary is challenging.
That's what we were just saying.
Okay.
Any
Rhetorical device, the analogy there, right?
any previous, this relates to previous history quite a bit.
Yeah.
So that'd be something that a lot of them, they never would have gone into it that sophisticated. So that's tough to try
To that depth.
to that depth, draw the connection.
Right. Yeah. So then the sort of the second part for us would be then in planning for some of this. Then you have some decisions to make. Do I, and I'll just think out loud. Do I front load vocabulary, or do I want them to discover? Or do I want them to notice the words that are giving them difficulty? Right. And so I have an organizer, and I know there's some other organizers for having kids notice words and maybe looking at parts of words that they already know, or it sounds like this word, or first of all thinking about whether or not they know the word. And maybe I've seen it, but I don't know what it means. I don't use it, but I've seen it, or I don't know it at all. And I think some of the words here, they may not have seen at all, right? And then to think about, well, when it comes to context, what more should I give them? Would I really have to do this lesson after they've read part of the textbook about the Federalist Papers? Or, I would think this comes up in a time where you've already covered the Articles, right? Maybe they've read parts of the Articles of Confederation and they've thought about the weaknesses of the Articles. And now we're in that post-convention period. And so maybe they know what the Federalist Papers are. And this is probably for a lot of political science or government political science people, that this might be the first text outside of the Declaration of the Constitution that they'll read, right? And then I would, I think there's maybe some sentence structure things to think about, how to use punctuation as cues. So you'd want whatever text you guys pick, because we're all going to have different texts. We all teach different things. As you're walking around, we certainly can make predictions because we've been teaching a while about what kids struggle with. But sometimes they surface something that you hadn't anticipated, or maybe they understood something you thought they would not get, right? It's a good time to do some formative assessment, to listen in on those conversations. Right? Okay. So what we would do next is we would do the gallery